I made you chase me, then resented you for having to run. The validation I needed from your pursuit was exactly what made me question whether your feelings were real or just about the challenge. For months, I created situations where you'd have to prove you wanted me, then felt guilty that proving it was necessary. I'm going to show you the 5 ways to handle her contradictory need for pursuit without losing yourself in the process. Approach number 1. Understand that her need for pursuit often comes from past experiences where love disappeared the moment it became convenient. The first thing to understand when she seems to need you to fight for her is that this need usually comes from a history where people's interest faded once the chase was over. When I would create distance or obstacles that required you to pursue me, it wasn't because I enjoyed watching you work for my attention. It was because previous experience had taught me that men who didn't have to work for connection often didn't value it once they had it. My therapist helped me understand this as validation through effort. When someone's investment level has been correlated with their persistence in the past, requiring pursuit feels like requiring proof of genuine interest rather than casual attraction. The most helpful response when she seems to need pursuit: recognize that her requirement for effort often comes from having been disappointed by people who lost interest once the novelty wore off, rather than from enjoying being difficult or playing games. What doesn't help? Assuming she's being manipulative or high maintenance, or refusing to show any effort because you think genuine love shouldn't require work. This can confirm her fears that your interest is conditional on her being easy to love. What does help? Understanding that some pursuit can be a reasonable request for demonstration of genuine interest, while also maintaining boundaries around what kinds of effort feel healthy versus exhausting. The key is distinguishing between reasonable requests for reassurance, showing that you're genuinely interested in her as a person, and unreasonable demands for constant proof, creating endless hoops to jump through without ever feeling satisfied. My chest would stay tight during periods when I needed pursuit because I was simultaneously grateful for your effort and ashamed that I couldn't just trust your words without requiring demonstration through actions. Understanding the psychology behind her need for pursuit allows you to respond with compassion rather than frustration, while still maintaining your own emotional integrity. Approach number 2. Show genuine interest without making it about conquering a challenge. The second most effective approach when she needs pursuit is demonstrating that your effort comes from genuine care rather than from enjoying the chase itself. A few weeks into patterns where I would require you to pursue me, the most reassuring responses were when you could show interest in ways that felt personal rather than generic. Instead of grand gestures that could work on anyone, you'd remember specific things I'd mentioned, follow up on conversations we'd had, show that you are paying attention to me as an individual, rather than just trying to win over a woman. This distinction mattered, because my fear was often that you were more interested in the validation of winning me over than in actually being with me. When you could pursue in ways that showed you've been listening to who I was, rather than just trying to overcome my resistance, it felt like you were fighting for me specifically, rather than fighting for the ego boost of success. The approach that worked best, pursuit that demonstrated knowledge of and care for my specific personality, interests, and concerns. I know you've been stressed about your presentation. I brought your favorite coffee, and I'm here if you want to practice. Felt more meaningful than expensive dinners or flowers that could work for anyone. What this doesn't mean: becoming a people pleaser who loses himself trying to cater to every preference or mood. Healthy pursuit maintains your own personality while showing genuine interest in hers. What this does mean: making it clear that your effort is about wanting to be close to her specifically, not about proving you can win over someone who's hard to get. This often helps someone feel pursued for who they are rather than what they represent. My shoulders would gradually relax when I experienced pursuit that felt personal, because it addressed the fear that you were more interested in the challenge than in the person presenting the challenge. This kind of pursuit often helps someone feel safe accepting your effort, because it's clear that you're fighting for connection with them, not just fighting to win a game. Approach number 3. Address her guilt about needing pursuit while still providing appropriate reassurance. The third most helpful approach when she needs you to fight for her is acknowledging the contradiction she's experiencing without making her choose between her need for reassurance and her guilt about having that need. When I would require pursuit and then feel guilty about it, the most comforting conversations happened when you could say something like, "I can see you're struggling with needing reassurance and feeling bad about needing it. It's okay that you need some proof that I'm genuinely interested. I'd rather show you than have you wonder." This type of response worked because it acknowledged both sides of my internal conflict without trying to resolve it immediately, or make me choose between feeling secure and feeling reasonable. It normalized my need for reassurance while also making it clear that providing it wasn't a burden for you. What never helped: making me feel guilty for needing pursuit. If you really trusted me, you wouldn't need me to prove anything, or dismissing the validity of wanting some demonstration of genuine interest. My feelings should be enough without me having to show them. What consistently helped: validating both her need for reassurance and her discomfort with having that need, while making it clear that reasonable pursuit felt natural rather than forced. I understand why you'd want to see that I'm serious about this. I want to show you. And I also want you to feel comfortable asking for what you need. Oh? The goal is helping her feel less guilty about her need for reassurance, while also establishing what kinds of pursuit feel good for both of you, versus what kinds become exhausting or unsustainable. If you're watching this because someone's contradictory needs around pursuit have left you feeling confused about how to respond appropriately, subscribe now. What I reveal next shows how to maintain boundaries while still providing reassurance. What I needed most during these conversations was someone who could hold space for my contradictory feelings without trying to logic them away, while also being honest about what they could realistically provide. My jaw would unclench when someone could acknowledge that my need for pursuit made sense based on my past experiences, while also helping me understand that not everyone who required effort would automatically disappear once they had it. This balance requires emotional maturity, being understanding without being enabling, reassuring without losing your own needs in the process. But even perfect understanding has limits when someone's need for pursuit becomes excessive. Approach number 4. Set clear boundaries around what kinds of pursuit feel healthy versus what becomes a performance you can't maintain. The fourth most crucial approach when she needs you to fight for her is being honest about what kinds of effort feel sustainable versus what starts to feel like emotional labor that drains your authentic care. During my patterns of requiring pursuit, the most helpful boundaries were when someone could distinguish between reasonable requests for reassurance and unrealistic expectations for constant proof. This might sound like, "I'm happy to show you that you matter to me, and I need us to find ways for me to do that, which don't require me to constantly overcome obstacles you create." This approach worked because it acknowledged my need for reassurance while also making it clear that pursuit needed to feel mutual and sustainable rather than one-sided and exhausting. It opened conversations about what kinds of demonstration felt meaningful to me versus what kinds were just testing for the sake of testing. The boundaries that helped most included specificity about what you were willing to provide. I want to reassure you about my feelings, so let's figure out what actually makes you feel secure. I can check in with you regularly, prioritize time together, and be consistent in how I show care. I can't keep having the same conversation about whether I really want to be here. What doesn't work? Boundaries that feel punitive. If you need me to prove myself, I'm out. Or boundaries that have no limits. I'll do whatever it takes to prove I care, no matter what you need. What does work? Clear, loving limits that support both people's emotional needs while encouraging growth toward trust, rather than endless testing. I care about you and want you to feel secure with me. I also need to feel like we're building something together, rather than me constantly having to earn my place with you. The most effective boundaries acknowledge my fear, while also creating structure that supported both of us. I understand you need reassurance because of past experiences. Let's figure out sustainable ways for me to provide that which don't leave either of us feeling exhausted. My stomach would drop when I received these boundaries because they forced me to choose between my need for endless reassurance and my desire for a sustainable relationship. But they were often exactly what I needed to start working on trusting rather than constantly testing. Setting boundaries around pursuit isn't about refusing to show care. It's about creating a framework that allows care to be demonstrated in ways that feel good for both people. Approach number 5. Help her distinguish between reasonable reassurance and endless validation seeking that prevents real intimacy. The 5th and most transformative approach when she needs you to fight for her is helping her recognize the difference between healthy requests for reassurance and protection mechanisms that actually prevent the closeness she says she wants. Eventually, I had to confront the fact that my need for pursuit was sometimes less about verifying your genuine interest and more about maintaining emotional distance while still receiving attention. The most helpful conversations happened when someone could gently point this out without being judgmental about it. This might sound like, I've noticed that when I show you I care, you seem to need me to prove it again pretty quickly. I'm wondering if the pursuit itself has become more comfortable for you than actually accepting that I want to be close to you. This observation was difficult to hear, but necessary, because it highlighted how my need for pursuit sometimes prevented the very intimacy I claim to want. By requiring constant proof, I was avoiding the vulnerability that comes with trusting someone's care without ongoing demonstration. The most effective approach included offering an alternative. What if we tried something different? What if, instead of me constantly proving I want to be here, you practiced believing that I want to be here and we see how that feels for both of us? What doesn't work? Making someone feel ashamed of their need for reassurance or dismissing it as completely unreasonable. This often increases their need for proof rather than reducing it. What does work? Helping someone recognize when their need for reassurance has become a barrier to receiving the very care they're seeking, while offering to work together toward greater trust and intimacy. This approach requires patience and compassion because it's asking someone to give up a protection mechanism that has felt necessary for their emotional safety, even when that mechanism is preventing the connection they actually want. My heart would race when someone offered this kind of insight, because it meant potentially giving up the safety of pursuit for the risk of actually trusting someone's care without constant verification. The goal isn't to eliminate all need for reassurance, but to help distinguish between reasonable requests for care demonstration and protection patterns that actually prevent intimacy from developing naturally. This often becomes the turning point where someone can start practicing trust rather than constantly testing. which allows real closeness to develop. When someone needs you to fight for her while hating that you have to, she's usually caught between wanting to trust your care and being afraid to stop protecting herself from disappointment. Understanding this contradiction allows you to provide appropriate reassurance while also maintaining boundaries that protect your own emotional energy and encourage her growth toward trust. The goal isn't to eliminate her need for reassurance, but to help both of you find sustainable ways to build security that don't require constant pursuit or endless proof. Here's what I wish someone had understood during my pursuit-requiring phases. I need you to fight for me, not because I enjoy making things difficult, but because I'm terrified that if loving me becomes easy, you'll stop wanting to do it. The most helpful response to contradictory needs around pursuit is patient understanding combined with clear boundaries about what kinds of effort feel healthy versus what becomes performance that prevents real intimacy. Do I regret making good people prove their care when their presence should have been proof enough? Yes, because it delayed intimacy and put unfair pressure on relationships that could have developed naturally. Do I understand why I needed pursuit sometimes? Finally, and understanding it has helped me learn to ask for reassurance in ways that build trust rather than requiring constant testing. Would I want someone to provide endless pursuit without boundaries? No, because part of what helped me grow was learning that sustainable love requires mutual effort rather than one-sided demonstration. If someone you care about currently needs you to fight for her while seeming conflicted about that need, maybe she's not trying to make your life difficult. Maybe she's trying to feel secure enough to stop making it difficult, and she needs help learning the difference between reasonable reassurance and protection mechanisms that prevent real closeness. Maybe the most loving thing you can do is show that some pursuit feels natural, while also helping her understand that constantly requiring proof can become a barrier to receiving the very care she's seeking. And maybe the kindest response is demonstrating that consistent care doesn't require constant earning, while also setting boundaries that encourage growth toward trust rather than endless testing. But how do you balance providing reassurance with encouraging someone to work on their ability to receive care? How do you support someone's healing while protecting your own emotional energy? These questions require ongoing navigation rather than one-time solutions. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is create structure that supports both people's growth while they learn to trust connection. If you want to understand more about how to stay connected when someone creates distance because they care, watch my video, Why She Creates Distance When She Cares, and How to Stay Connected. That video will show you specific strategies for maintaining connection with someone who uses distance as protection while preserving your own emotional well-being.